welcome to the Cult of Domesticity podcast, a podcast about history, true crime, and whatever life brings us. I'm Courtney, and every week I am joined by another fascinating person. Let's see what we're going to talk about this week. Okay, welcome back to the Cult of Domesticity with Prickly Pete and Faye Daniels as our guest again.
Hi. Yep, we are here. Hi. We're getting ready to rage.
This time we don't have to talk, we get to listen.
Yeah,
well, we still have,
you get to put the snarky comments.
Yeah, we still get to talk. Jesus. This isn't class.
So I don't get to just
we
like
get to
go grab a
participate.
fucking cigarette and sit here and just like, interesting.
I mean, you could do that. I
can.
can't see
I'm
you,
not
but
gonna-
I can't judge you
I'm
for
pretty
it.
sure my wife would get really mad if I smoked in the house.
She would divorce your ass. Take the house.
Yeah, I don't see that going well.
There's no prenup. You get nothing.
You get the cigarette.
Yeah, you get to have the cigarette. And
I get that pack of cigarettes I save from when I get drunk and I'm like, I could really use a cigarette right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you get in the divorce.
So, have you guys heard of Alfred the Great?
No.
I've heard of various the greats, not that one.
Where
Yeah,
are
he's
we at? Where is he the great of?
So he is the great of England, one of the few
Okay.
that gets a name.
Still not ringing a bell.
Okay, I
That's what I was
just have
hoping
to
for.
put one thing in before we get going. So I was looking up Alfred the Great just so that I can like read along as we're going. And if you type in Alfred the on Google, the first thing is great, the second thing is hedgehog. So
Who's Alfred Hedgehog?
I don't know who Alfred the Hedgehog is, but I don't want to click it.
Hedgehog cute.
I feel like it's something wrong. I feel like it's something very wrong.
Well, we'll find out after this. We'll
Yeah.
try that.
All right, so tell me
But,
about
all right,
Wise Elf.
we got the real Alfred the Great, the OG.
Yes. He was born in the royal state of Wantage, historically Berkshire, now Oxfordshire, this is a fun thing about this period. We don't actually know. We have a range of birth. So 847 or 849. Somewhere between there.
Okay.
He was born.
Are we talking BCE or are we talking CE?
CE. So after Romans, during the time of the Vikings, but not quite.
Oh, so we're talking
Normans.
Anglo-Saxons then.
Yes.
Woo!
So get ready for all these great Anglo-Saxon names. My Google Drive is very confused by the spelling.
All sorts of characters that don't exist anymore, like an A and an E smushed together into one thing.
It just doesn't think you can
Yes.
spell. It's just like, oh my god, what is she trying to do today?
I think it's just crying. I think my Google Drive sometimes just cries and goes, "Why?
Spinning out in
Why
a
you do
circle.
this?"
Egbert is not a name. Would you like to fix that?
Yeah. So Alfred was the youngest of 5 sons of King Ethelwulf of Wessex and his first wife, Othber.
All right.
I love Anglo-Saxon names.
Starting strong. I know none of this. This is fascinating.
So when he was 4 years old, and a lot of this is coming from like a chronicle and stories, so we're going to take that Salt Bay pinch of salt and make it even smaller.
Okay.
This is the generally accepted truth. He was sent by his father to Rome, where he was anointed king by Pope Leo the Fourth. Sorry, I had to remember my Roman numerals.
And he gets to
And-
be king just cuz?
We'll get, again, it's a story. So he basically, what we know is he does a pilgrimage to Rome. We assume it's with his father, and they're just hanging out.
Well, because converting stuff to Christianity, especially in that part of the world at this time period, was hot shit.
Okay.
So, like, that's why the Pope giving him some clout is a big deal.
Okay, so he
Yeah.
did some Christian stuff, and then the Pope was like, yo, good enough.
There's still a
king.
shitload of pagans, and like the Vikings are pagans. So like Christianity coming out of the woodwork and into everyone's daily life is a big deal right
So
now.
you just got to keep stamping crosses on everybody, and then the Pope goes, that's cool, and then gives you a king.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, because like I mean, the Pope's down in Southern Europe. This is Northern Europe. Britain is technically an island nation, so like they're separated. The Vikings are in the frozen north, so like all these folks are still pagans.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say it was probably his father was getting anointed by the Pope, being like, thank you for Christianizing Wessex and parts of like Britannia at this time. So here's some kudos.
All right.
And this is in 855. We know this because it's recorded on both sides. So the Anglo-Saxons are recording it and the church is recording it. A letter to Pope Leo the Fourth shows that Alfred was made a consul. And this is where this confusion of, oh, he was anointed king. No, he's a consul, which is like, he's an officer of the church, basically. And they also spend time at the court of Charles the Bald, king of the Franks, before this. So Charlemagne's family. Charlemagne, not in the assholes of history. We went over this. Might be molesting his daughters, but not an asshole generally.
You're not an asshole if you're molesting your daughters? Is this a Game of Thrones?
We don't
Game of
know.
Thrones reference?
No.
This is a history's fun and there's lots of incest reference.
Oh, okay. So it's like not the worst thing you could be doing at the time.
He was a very good king and ruler and things. We don't know for sure. His good friend Einhard kind of like there's this weird like he hints at weird things and you're like people are like he didn't want his daughters to marry and didn't want him to like interact with people and he kept like but he educated them all this stuff and you're just like why is he like so close to them but like not letting them be humans?
Yeah, he's like too into his daughter's social lives, like just
yeah where people are like odd. So they return from Rome in 856 and the reason why these journeys take so long is because horses and boats.
Yeah,
they don't move fast and they tire out. Not the boats, but the horses.
Yeah, but boats are sketchy because there's so much disease and like hardships that go on them. So
and storms.
And, just anything can go wrong on a boat.
Yep. And they arrive and Ethelwulf was deposed by his son Ethelbald. And so there's civil war that could basically tear Wessex apart, which is one of the bigger shires. They determined that Ethelbald would retain the Western Shire, historically Wessex. Ethelwulf would rule the East. And this way they would not have to have a civil war and lose a bunch of life because at this point we have low population and there's been raids and all of that. Ethelwulf retired to Kent where he reigned as sub-king until his death 2 years later in 858. I always want to make this a like 16th century stuff and I don't. Nope.
Earlier.
It's a lot early. It's about 1,000 years earlier than I would like it to be.
Way earlier.
So at this point, Alfred is around 11, and I do love that he has the easiest to pronounce name.
You mean Ethelbert isn't the best name you've ever read?
Ethelbert.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's a great name. We should bring Anglo-Saxon names back for children and dogs.
I just love that the A and the E kind of make that like A&E logo, like the TV station. Yeah. And I'm like, Jesus, guys, like, way to brand yourselves early.
Yeah. So he was a studious child who grew up to be a man of determination, intelligence, resolution, even though he was suffering from ill health for much of his life. And they've kind of determined based on the descriptions he had Crohn's disease.
Whoa.
Poor dude. That sucks. Crohn's disease is awful.
Isn't it so much pain? Isn't it a lot of like
abdominal pain and diarrhea a lot.
Yeah.
Which, how would you control that in the 9th century?
They didn't know what it was. They probably just thought that you had, like...
Demons?
You breathed some bad air and now you're shitting your pants.
You got poop demons?
Yeah,
like, you inhaled some poop demons.
You were... What is he, like, cursed then? Like, would they be like, oh, fuck, like, hit him in the head with some sage because he
you
cursed
also
as
get,
shit.
like, you can also get, like, rashes with Crohn's disease. So, like, there's no way they would have thought one thing caused both of those. They probably would have just thought that you were some sort of weird, like, cursed baby.
But he gets to be king?
Well, I mean, you don't get Crohn's till you're like 20, so...
Well, they noticed he had it for a while, so he probably got it in his teens. And I just love that medievalists have figured out that's what it was based on reading the descriptions and all of that. So probably it was a medical medievalist that figured that out, and you're just like, what?
Would that be on like a... Like somebody like journaled that down on like a scroll and was like... Or did he journal it? Did he have a diarrhea journal? Like...
He had a log?
Yeah, like a poop log? Yeah, he had Bristol stool scale.
On the 4th day of December, 1857, I shatteth 5 times upon this day.
Stage 7 is just like weird, like...
I hope that it may only be 3 on the morrow.
Well, he's one of the more chronicled individuals, and he's a prolific writer. So it was not a hidden thing, but because he was still a good warrior, people are like, dude may shit a lot, but... He's keeping us up to date.
Wow, he must have been tough as shit then, because to be able to like tough shit. Whoa, put it right in there. But to be able to like still be a really like fit warrior while shitting your brains out, like I just can't imagine that would go together.
I doubt homie was that fit.
Okay,
you gotta remember that like everyone back then is like starving, so being quote unquote fit means you're not like Skeletor.
Oh, okay.
Well, he's also a noble, so he gets enough food. Like,
yeah,
like
the sheer fact that he has food means that he's fit, not the fact that like you can be this like hobbled diarrhea goblin and still be fucking fit.
Okay, so has food but still has fleas.
Oh, definitely. Everyone's got
Okay,
fleas.
all
No
right.
one's taking baths.
All right, got it.
You're taking your monthly bath.
His shit-crusted asshole is probably not even the smelliest thing in the fucking castle.
Oh, gross.
They have to just change his brushes constantly.
They just burn everything.
Every week.
Everything he touches, they just burn because it's covered in poop.
Oh.
And he's 18, right? We're at 18. That's what age we're dealing with.
Well, his father dies when he's 11, and then he doesn't take the throne for a bit.
Okay, because he's got brothers.
Yeah, there's succession rules that's complicated.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's get into the description of Alfred. Esser wrote in his Life of Alfred, like I said, they wrote about him, quote, "He was greatly loved, more than all of his brothers, by his father and mother, indeed by everyone, with universal and profound love, and he brought up in the royal court and nowhere else. He was seen to be more comely in appearance than his brothers, and more pleasing in manner, speech, and behavior. And in spite of all the demands of present life, it has been the desire for wisdom more than anything else, together with the nobility of his birth, which have been characterized the nature of his noble mind," end quote. So he's good looking, he's smart, he's better than all his brothers.
He's got that big dick energy.
Pretty much.
Yes, but is he the youngest of his brothers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he's kind of low on the succession scale, but he's the best pick.
I mean, that sort of thing can
Anglo-Saxon.
totally happen.
Can he kill his
like-
brothers?
Huh?
Can he kill his brothers?
I don't know what kind of. Do you know what kind of
succession?
succession they used in Anglo-Saxon fucking Europe or Britain at the time?
It's hierarchical, but it's also like it's in a sense of brothers, so we'll get into how he gets to the throne, but it tends to be hierarchical, but they'll put someone else in charge if it's an agreement. So yeah, so-and-so might be next in line, but the current king and someone else say, okay, I want you to be next.
Okay.
So it's more flexible. It's not like if you think of Norman conquest, that kind of very strict hierarchy of the medieval ages, because we're still tribe mind, plus we're getting into this more rigid sense.
Okay. So he's got a shot.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was hoping
especially
for.
So Esser tells us that Alfred did not learn to read until he was 12 years old or later, which was determined to be a shameful negligence. Again, if you're sitting on the pot, you can just read. It's fine. It's how you can work it out.
He's not going anywhere. Might as well read something.
Is this chamber pot era or is this pre-chamber pot where you just shit out the window?
I'm assuming chamber pot era because
some of them old castles just literally like underneath the window there's just a box with a hole in it that you sat on, you shat into, and it went straight out the wall.
That's gross. That's so fucking gross.
it's still better than Versailles, which has 0 bathrooms.
Yeah, I mean it's better than a poop street.
You just shit on the floor.
Well, you shit
What is
outside.
happening in there?
In Versailles, people went to the bathroom in the hall and like in the stairwells. It's a documented fact.
Ew.
Like wealthy people, like in servants stuff. Yeah, it's disgusting.
Get it together.
So he was noted to be an excellent listener, had an incredible memory, and retained poetry and psalms because that's what we got. Poetry and psalms.
A weird thing.
And one of the stories we have of Alfred is his mother offered up a book of Saxon poetry to him and his brothers and telling them, I shall give this book to whichever of you can learn it the fastest. And Alfred won that.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
Hands down. He's just like shitting and reading. He's not doing anything else.
And if he has a good memory, so he probably has a photographic memory.
Yeah. And so he's just going to fucking look at everything and be like, done.
Mm-hmm. He's also noted for carrying around a small book, probably either a pocket notebook or a prayer book. And he was also an avid hunter of every branch of the sport. So probably archery, on horse, spearing, stabbing, slashing, poking with things.
So he is pretty fit.
I don't hunt. Yeah.
He's got to be at least semi like coordinated and fit, keeping in good enough shape to hunt down things, especially while riding a horse. Jesus.
Yeah, that would definitely, if you have Crohn's disease, not feel great.
Yeah.
He's also noted for being the most open-minded, being an advocate for education, and they think he really got this love of learning because he couldn't read and write till like he was already half grown. Really?
Huh. So he sounds like a stellar dude. He hasn't done anything crazy yet, but he sounds like a stellar dude.
He's also a child, so
I mean, got to start it somewhere.
He's no Joffrey. So, his father Ethelwulf died, and then the kingdom is ruled by Alfred's 3 brothers in succession: Ethelbald, Ethelbert, and Ethelred.
Okay. Do they get long times on the throne, or is it like
reasonably? Like, the problem is they're fighting the Danes, which is the
Danish
English version.
No, they're Vikings.
Vikings? Okay.
Vikings.
So before
Yeah.
Denmark even
Well, the Kingdom of Denmark exists.
Yeah.
But the Kingdom of
They just
Denmark is
refer-
one of the... So, like, Denmark is technically part of Scandinavia, which is basically where you can assume Vikings came from.
So everybody's just Vikings at that time.
I mean, if you're from Norway, Sweden, or Denmark, then yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're fighting.
And they would just refer to you by the region you came from, so it's the Danes.
Okay.
So they know they're specifically the Danes coming in, fighting them on their eastern coast.
Huh.
So there's also a lovely legend that young Alfred spent time in Ireland seeking healings, for his Crohn's disease. And they determined that it was Crohn's disease in the Journal of the Royal Society of Medicine, volume 48 in 1991, in case you want to look it up.
Okay, cool. No, that is neat that they found where he went to a doctor and was like, yo, help me.
Yeah. Again, like when he started writing, I think he just started recording it because it was just easier. Because if I remember correctly from Crohn's disease, it helps if you track like your attacks, so that way you can kind of figure out, oh, this makes it worse, this makes it better.
Yeah, figure out the pattern, and then especially if he takes the pattern to a healer, can be like, this is what's going on, and they can have a better idea of what crazy grass root to give him.
We're gonna give you some leeches and some of this weird water we don't know what does, but probably has sulfur in it.
Yeah, like here, just drink these chemicals.
Or
It'd be
fucking
fun.
lead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or mercury.
Humblum
That's always
was
my
used
favorite.
for everything too.
So we don't really know what happens to him in the short reigns of his older brother Ethelbald and Ethelbert. They just describe the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle describes the great heathen army of the Danes landing in East Anglia with the intent of conquering the 4 kingdoms of basically Anglo-Saxon England in 865. To keep trying to
Wait,
make it
is that Ivar the Boneless Great Heathen Army?
It might be. I can't remember which one
I only know because Ivar the Boneless is a known Viking commander guy, and I think it's hilarious because he was named the Boneless because he was impotent, so he couldn't get a boner, so they called him the Boneless.
Oh,
The Vikings.
no.
Yep. So the Vikings were like, "Ha, your penis doesn't work. Here's the nickname the Boneless."
That's such a badass name, and then you find out it's because his penis is broken.
Vikings. We're literal.
Fucking Vikings, man.
But we do know at this point, Alfred's public life begins at age 16, and so in 865, with the accession of his third brother, 18-year-old Ethelred. So they're all young. It's great.
Now, I do want to ask, do you know why he's Alfred and he lost the Ethel, prefix on the name?
They don't know why his name was chosen, but it was there's been other Alfreds. It's a really, really old name in England.
Well, his father had Athel and his 3 brothers had Athel as kind of the prefix for the name, so I didn't know if there was a reason they were like, oh, Athelred, what's close to the Alfred?
I think it's also we just, because you can spell those names differently, and I think Alfred is just spelled differently because we've continued that name, so we dropped the AE.
Well, I looked and it looks like it's not Athel, it's not like Athelfred or something like that, it's still Alfred, so I was just wondering if you knew why he lost the Thol part, I guess.
I think it might just be they already went through the other family names because they tend to just English kings have the same 20 names.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So I think they were just like, okay, we ran out of the AEs. Next one, Alfred.
Okay.
You're up. Yeah, because there's a certain point when you have kings and queens and it's the same names for about 100 years and you're just you have to preface which one it is.
Yeah, that would get very confusing.
There's only one King Stephen, though, in England. Only one.
King Stephen.
Yeah, he didn't last very long.
Oh, Steve tried his best.
He did. So, during this period, Bishop Asser gave Alfred a unique title of this is Latin, Secundarius, which is basically, this is the successor to the current monarch.
Okay.
Probably
And-
means secondary or something like that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It looks kind of like it. Latin. It's still here.
Yeah, Latin's pretty much, English is pretty much Latin and German.
Yeah. Explains a lot. And this had been sanctioned by Alfred's father or by the Witan, which is basically a precursor to the Council of the Barons, which will become Parliament like the House of Lords.
Okay. So
There's,
it's just early Parliament chilling. It's a bunch of dudes, I'm guessing.
It's an early group of elder chieftains, warriors, who give the king advice, because the king is basically their leader in war. So this is Anglo-Saxon rules. So this has been developing since the Celts and the Celts, and they just have continued it and has a formal name. I mean, it's great. It's a great name, and I wish Parliament, the House of Lords, was called the Witan still, but
Yeah, that's a sick name.
sounds like they're part of the Wu-Tang Clan.
So did all of his brothers, so they all end up dying young, I assuming from like battle?
Yeah, they, just because it's so common now with the Danes, so the Danes, if you've watched the show Vikings, you know they have seasonal, basically, raiding, so they're constantly trying to get them to not raid their land,
Okay.
which is good.
Or if you've ever played Crusader Kings as one of those countries, that's how you make your money in those countries. You have to go raiding.
Is you go raiding and you get money? Because it seems like
And probably-
we've gone through the Ethel boys pretty quick.
The Ethelings.
The Ethel.
We got one left.
Yeah, it looks like he's up, but it's like, damn. Like, I mean, I guess it's not that young to them during the time, but it just seems like these kids would just be starting out for our time, but they're kind of in like the middle of their life.
They also would start fighting at age 15. So
Yeah.
by 18,
That's pretty
you're
much like an
already
adult
seasoned
back
warrior.
then, though. So like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
You would live to 40 or 50 if you were, and people did live longer. It just depended on your position and where you were.
Also, you have to remember that this is the time period where they're like, has she had her first bleed yet? Then she's a
yeah,
woman. So like you like ages are a little bit different than nowadays.
Yeah, that's
where
what-
we figured out
yeah,
that
I
the
was
brain's
trying
not
to
even
figure
done
out.
cooking until you're 25.
Which explains a lot of conflicts that they have.
Yeah, so,
when you think about it.
It's all teenage wars.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's pretty much to make it so if Ethelred falls in battle, the succession is secure. And this is the tradition among other Germanic peoples, such as the Swedes, the Franks, which are closely related to the Anglo-Saxons, to crown a successor as a royal prince and military commander. So you have to be king and commander, and they weren't pulling current military strategy. They were fighting from the front.
Oh God.
They're in there with you.
Okay, so yeah,
Well, it was like a big
they're
morale
gonna-
thing was to have the king out there fighting with you. Like if you see that your king's going in, you're much more willing to sacrifice yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In 868, he marries Elswin, the daughter of Ethelred, surnamed Mikkel, the Earldomens of the Gaines, which is a tribe, probably one of the tribal groups like the Mercians. And we know that her mother was Edibirth, member of the Mercian royal family. So she's pretty good with all the royal blood mixed.
Is she
Good wife.
related to him?
No, it's another Ethelred,
Okay.
because he's Elman of the Gaines, and they're in Wessex. So
Okay, because one of his brothers is named Ethelred.
Again, remember she was talking about there's 4 names to
Yeah.
choose from.
Okay.
Well,
you roll the dice.
so I googled it real quick, and the Aethel prefix means that you're from a royal lineage.
Okay.
That means that you're able to be king. So it's also possible they dropped it with his fourth son because they never thought they'd get that far down the line.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So
So he's married now.
yeah, Elswin had with Alfred had 5 or 6 children together. Who's to say?
I mean, you got to keep popping him out. Things are just happening to him sometime.
Yeah. We have Ethelflaed, Edward, Ethelward, and Elfit. I'm going to go with that's their pronunciations.
Jesus.
Isn't Ethelwald in there somewhere?
Nope.
Oh.
They didn't continue that one.
No magical child. Ethelwald.
Oh, Ethelwald's his
like-
nephew. I just know that
Yeah.
this comes up. I actually, now that we're talking about this, I do actually know who Alfred the Great is. I just forgot that the Great was his thing.
Yeah. I just like Edward among all those. He's the Alfred of the family.
Yeah, they just
He's
were like, okay, Ed.
So at this point, the West Saxons and the Mercians were then engaged in a war against the invading Danes, and Alfred took active part in this the struggle. He was recorded as fighting besides Ethelred in an unsuccessful attempt to keep the great heathen army led by Ivar the Boneless out of the adjoining kingdom of Mercia. So they're basically the first front and fighting the Dickless.
Oh man. Fighting the Boneless with his sword.
His floppy dong just flopping in the wind as he's running at you, like charging down the field.
That's how they win, is everyone just gets scared. They're like, oh, his snake is weird.
He doesn't have a boner! Because everyone gets a boner before battle, so...
That'd be creeper if he got a boner, like, mid-battle.
I think it happens.
Fixed itself.
That's the only time he can get hard is mid-battle.
Oh my god. It's just, that's the original, like, weird sociopath problems.
We found his kink. So the Danes specifically arrived in Wessex at the end of 870. They fought 9 battles that following year with varying outcomes. And there's some recorded, some not recorded. It just also, we're in the 9th century, so shit's been lost.
Yeah. It makes sense that, like, it's too far back to know exactly all the time what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And then Alfred ascends the throne during the thickest point of this conflict, and before the end of the year, he succeeded in effectively making a peace. And they think this is the start of the Danelaw, which is basically, we pay you, don't kill us.
Okay, so we're doing a money truce of like, we'll give you money, just stop fucking with us.
Well, yeah, that's literally what like a protect. What are those fucking the thing the mafia does? We talked about it because fucking Oh, maybe, yeah, no, it fucking, what's his fuck?
Like a protective order?
Yeah, well, what the fucking thing that the fucking mobsters do where they're like, give me money and nothing bad will happen to your fucking shop.
Oh,
it's just basically a tax. It's a protection tax.
Okay.
Yeah, and so Danelaw, they do it every year, and they gave them some land because they wanted to settle their people there. So that's why it's kind of funny, portions of England, if you look at the names, they're a little different. I mean, Anglo-Saxonness is also a little different.
Okay. But it can get modified depending on what's going on in the region. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an eastern portion. You can, if you look up area of the Danelaw, they'll show you like where it is. Okay. This is in accordance with an agreement that Ethelred and Alfred had made earlier in the year at an assembly at a place called Swineburg. We don't know where it is.
Probably got swine. Probably got pigs.
Swineburg.
Swineburg. So it sounds like the Swedish fish should say it.
Yeah.
Or
Swedish fish. Yeah. It's the early Swedish fish.
If you open a bag of Swedish fish, it's like Swineburg.
That's what they say every time.
Yeah. As they die, that's their like battle cries. Like Swineburg, and they just drive right into your mouth. But we're losing King Ethelred. Like he lost his last brother.
Yeah. But both brothers agreed whichever one of them outlived the other would inherit the personal property that King Ethelwulf had left jointly to his sons in his will. So basically he had been like, this stuff is for you guys. Split it up as you will. And they're like, okay, we're the last few left. Shake on it. The deceased sons of like all his brothers would receive only the whatever property and riches their father had settled upon them personally, and whatever additional lands their uncles had acquired. So basically, if one of the brothers got more land and then they died, it would go split to them, and kind of a cumulative pot after a while.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. Makes sense of what you would do. You don't want to lose any land, so you just keep giving it to somebody.
Yeah. And really the reason why Alfred's accession went uncontested was his nephews were so young and they're in the middle of war. So you don't want them leading your armies like a 4-year-old.
Yeah, like a child can't do it, so let Poopy McGee, the last son, fucking do it.
Yeah. So they get a couple years of peace because of paying them until about 875 when the Danes renewed their attacks. And the Viking army does withdraw from Reading in autumn of 871, so a couple years before, to take up winter quarters at the Mercian London. So they hang out in London for a bit.
Okay.
The Vikings.
Just go chill in London? God, London is old.
Yeah, I just love how much the Vikings don't give a fuck. They're just like, yeah, I guess we'll go. So they actually have found hoards dating to the Viking occupation of London 871-72 in Croydon, Gravesend, and at Waterloo Bridge.
Okay. So it just shows that they were there, they were kind of dominating everything.
Yeah, and it shows the cost of making peace with them. So they paid them to go basically somewhere else. So they pay them, the Vikings go somewhere else, they pay them, they go somewhere else. It's a great way to make money.
Yeah, the Vikings are coming out like bandits on this.
So they come back in 876, in 877. Each time they're like, we'll be peaceful. But in 878 comes the Great Invasion under Guthrum. And this is the low watermark for Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. With all other kingdoms falling to the Vikings, Wessex alone is still resisting. And if I remember correctly, it's the biggest of them. So if they fall, you're like, oh crap.
So this is the biggest like war, or like, is this the biggest like region they're trying to take over?
Yeah, this is the biggest kingdom right now in England. So this is not even talking about Scotland or Wales. It's just England. They were broken up to several kingdoms.
Wow.
And Wessex was the largest.
Okay, so if they take Wessex, the Vikings pretty much have like control.
They've got a very strong economic foothold in England if they take Wessex.
Okay, so they can't take Wessex.
Yeah, and they'll basically have all of England. So it like unless they're gonna do a massive rebellion, it's over for them.
Wow.
Which is the fear. So they meet with the Danes with success, but about Easter, Alfred establishes himself at Athelney and then later marches to Brixen, gathering forces. And you want to assume that other forces from other like kingdoms are coming to help him because they're like, I don't want to be under the Vikings, which I've heard I've read it wasn't horrible, but the taking over process was aggressive.
Yeah, I assume nothing is like, fancy or very civil. It's just a lot of like smash and grab.
Smash and grab and rape.
Yeah, that's what I figured based off History Channel knowledge.
Which is pretty true for that. That was pretty accurate.
Okay.
And the equality of females in that society, which I'm like, hey, Vikings, good on you. At the Battle of Anthinum, and it's probably Eddington in Wiltshire, Alfred defeats the Danes. He gets Guthrum to agree to peace and consented to be baptized.
Whoa.
So just imagine how happy that Pope is. Just waving a little, like, I don't know, flag with a picture of Jesus on it.
Yeah.
Having a great time.
He's getting the cross stamp. He's just being able to be like, hell yeah, you're allowed into our sweet club of Christianity now.
Yeah, you want to attack other Christians, because that's how that works.
Yeah, if you're part of our club, you can't be fighting everybody.
We definitely don't have inter-Christian battles at all.
No, not at all. Everybody's super peaceful.
So peaceful. So then we get another legend about Alfred at this time. The story of the burnt cakes.
Oh, the story must be told.
This is an account from his visit to the Danish camp in the guise of a harper, and just really he's dressed up. They figured out it originated in the 12th century chronicles and tells how he first fled the Somerset levels. Alfred was given shelter by a peasant woman who was unaware of his identity and left him to watch some wheaten cakes as she had left cooking on the fire. Preoccupied with his problems of the kingdom, Alfred let the cakes burn and was scolded, and he learned from this and then got some peace.
That is such a fucking British folktale. I'm so upset by how just uniquely English that is. He was making.
You burnt the cakes.
You burnt the wheaten cakes. Our tasteless cakes are now slightly tasted with burn. You must be punished for your actions.
How old is he? He's like the king, and he's getting scolded by this lady.
But she doesn't know he's the king. He's dressed up as a beggar or a harpist. Yeah. So for 15 years, the kingdom's at peace. But guess who comes back? The Danes.
The Danes. What is wrong with them? Why do they keep?
They need more money. They don't do anything to make money. They just take it from other people.
They just go up to people like, "Bitch, where's my money? I don't pay you, but bitch, where's my money?"
Yeah, that's their fucking income, is just taking it from other people. Viking is literally a verb, which means to pillage and rape, so
it's just being shitty little trust fund kids that are like, give me more money, and then
they're not trust fund kids, though. They're shitty bullies that just come
But they're not doing anything.
Money.
They're just laying around being like, give me money.
I mean, they're taking more stuff from more countries.
Oh, trust me, if you don't pay them, they're gonna kill you.
Okay. All right, They're They're gonna square up if you don't pay. Okay.
They live in the frozen north. Yep. It's not like they're growing their own food.
But
I assume they all live in Iceland or whatever, and they're all green. Everything's green.
Yeah, they're up in Scandinavia. They're having a great time. But they managed to drive them out and establish their Saxon supremacy. So, you have 15 years of peace before the Danes come back. What does Alfred do? Turn to education.
Oh, I was going to say make more kids, but education works too.
He's probably working on that too.
Okay.
So basically because of the continued pillage of the monasteries by the Vikings, and it really interrupts your education when you're getting stabbed. Education standards had diminished in the kingdom. So he founded a court school to educate nobles and encouraged the great scholars of the day to come hang out. So he did the same thing Charlemagne did. He was like, I got this really nice school. Would you like to learn here? And they're like, ooh, look at those quills in those books. I'll be right there.
Whoa, that's really cool that he was adamant that somebody needed to get educated. Maybe not everybody can because people are still working in fields and stuff, but at least somebody needs to get educated to keep the stories going.
Yeah. And also he made that English would be the official written language. So I'm going to say semi-standardizing it, but we don't get standardized language till the 19th, 20th century. And he personally translates into English, so from other languages, the history of the Venerable Bede, which is how we get a lot of our pre-Saxon history of England, Boethius' Consolation of Philosophy, the dialogues of Gregory the Great, Gregory's Pastoral Care, Orius' Soliloquies of St. Augustine, and everything else. Before this, it was written in Latin. So we're getting English vernacular books, which is really uncommon at this time. And this is when vernacular becomes a thing, in writing sense. You always spoke, people would speak, in their vernacular, but, at courts, you would probably, if you had guests, you'd speak and write in Latin, because it was a common language.
Wow. I didn't think that was, happening that early on. I thought they wouldn't care that early on.
Yeah, Charlemagne has a document that has the first recorded writing in vernacular French and German, as well as Latin. It's, insane. You're like, what? Nah. And it's really still only the elite who is writing in English and in Latin. He also decrees that copies be made of these documents and placed in monasteries and churches and frequently updated, which is really key because before making a book is someone's life. Yeah, depending on the length of the book. So he's like, no, we need to keep these updated. Everyone needs to have them. And we still have some copies of them. And it's really the only reason we have literary sources from the English history from the departure of Rome to the Roman conquest.
Are those really expensive? Do people pay big money for them?
You probably can't buy them because they're either at a library or a museum.
So you have to steal them, like the Declaration of Independence.
You probably can go see them. You can, depending on the condition, they'll let you go see them. You might have to request it. I've seen someone who, was dealing with a illuminated manuscript, or the Book of the Nells in Ireland is now completely digitized, so you can see it all online.
Okay. We recently did a master forger, so I keep thinking of wonder if he tried to forge some of this crazy shit.
Probably. So Alfred really made Wessex the rallying point for the Saxons, freeing the country from invaders by uniting of all England and basically starting to make England as we know it. He also established a legal code forming the body of Saxon law based on the Code of Offa of Mercia, which limited the practice of blood feuding and imposed heavy penalties on those in breach of a sworn oath. So this really stops, blood feuds would be oh, you killed my brother, now I have, I'll go kill one of you, and then it just keeps going back and forth. And we're having it all written down so that way people know about it. He's also credited with establishing trial by jury, law of frank pledge, and other institutions that really are ingrained now into our legal system because we're based off the English legal system. He was represented as the founder of Oxford, but that claim was recently disproved. So, sorry, Oxford.
So Oxford, the Like college?
Yeah, like where Oxford University is. Like they're like,
Yeah,
"He-
you
he
know, like
founded this."
the best university in the world, that Oxford.
The Oxford comma? Like those little bitches?
Yeah.
But he's basically like modernizing this whole area and trying to like set it all up for like way more civilized lasting time.
Yeah, he's trying to just he's at this point, England and these kings, you don't make new laws. You deal for situations and then you have precedent, which is why England's laws are like trying to figure them all out are so confusing. So he just gathered them all down and made them written, so that way everything would be like
Consistent.
You can enforce it because.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, good for him. He's pulling them out.
Yeah, and he's taking away laws that no longer apply. So he's basically writing and like clearing laws. So he also founded monasteries, rebuilt them. He dies in Wantage in 899 at the age of 53. So look at him.
So he made it. We got one brother that came out and he like made it full life.
Yeah. He remains the only English sovereign to ever receive the epithet of the Great, which was bestowed upon him in the 17th century. So that's like crazy that so much later they're looking at what he did and they're like, yeah, we're going to add some a little bit at the end of there.
Wow. I mean, he seems to be like a stellar king for the time frame.
Yeah. And then we have a little bit of a mystery at the end.
After he dies?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Ooh.
Where was he buried? Where are his bones? Is the real question.
Is he like Anastasia? Like he's like still out there somewhere? You gotta go find his ass? He's got amnesia?
No, they found Anastasia. She was down a well.
Oh, she did? Did they find her?
Yeah.
I thought they found her brother, but they didn't find her.
No, she was a little further down.
Oh, she's further
She
down?
probably was running.
Damn, girl.
Yeah, read up on that. That's depressing.
Okay,
I'm gonna cover it soon.
All right, I'm gonna have to update my Romanov stuff so I can know what happens when you cover it.
Yeah. So Alfred was buried at the Old Minster in Winchester. A few later on, when they completed the new minster, which Alfred had founded, they moved his body there. Then in the early 12th century, King Henry I, one of the several Henrys.
Okay.
w-
There's a lot of Henrys. I
only-
remember that.
I think they only did 8, and then everyone else was like, not touching that. For the firstborn. But yeah. So he's like, I'm going to extend my palace at Winchester, which would make the new minster being demolished to accommodate his plans. So what to do with these bones? They removed the bones of King Alfred and King Edward the Elder to outside the city walls to a new monastery to accommodate their tombs. And, they then reinterred their bones, all the Anglo-Saxon kings, to the high altar at Hyde Abbey. But if we remember our other King Henry, the most famous of all them, Henry VIII,
Who was
such a dick.
Yeah, I would say that was the biggest dick.
Who knows? He might have had a tiny dick.
Yeah, he's what was little dick energy? He's gone too much. No, he's gone from like trying to have big dick energy. He's got little dick energy. But he was definitely the biggest asshole.
Yeah, I think they've determined like dick size relates into like how many daughters and sons they have, and I think if you the smaller the penis, like the more daughters you have, but don't cite that.
That doesn't
not
sound
science.
like real science. That sounds like one of them old wives' tales.
But I mean, he had nothing, so
He had 2 sons, and
wasn't one illegitimate? Isn't that the one? Isn't this the one that's like got the?
Well, the question
bastard
is
son?
how we have one recognized illegitimate child, several other possible,
Okay.
but he just and then like a lot of like daughters.
Oh yeah,
But
because he was the one where he kept getting daughters, but he really wanted a son. So doesn't he kill one wife and then marries another? We
Am I
have. thinking of a different Henry?
died, beheaded, died.
Died beheaded
Hung.
alive.
Yeah, that's it's great when your wives have like a rhyme.
Yeah, like they have like a series of events, so you're like, I can definitely pattern this.
Yeah, so Henry, to marry Anne, made his own church, which I like to call Catholic Light,
Okay.
and
Diet Catholic.
dissolved. If you're Anglican, it's Catholic Light. It's like Lutheran, it's Catholic Light. It's just changed Catholicism.
We're using fake sugar instead of real sugar this time.
Yeah. And so he dissolved all the monasteries because also he liked spending that money, so he was broke.
Yeah.
And Hyde Abbey was ransacked and destroyed, common with all the other religious houses. But where did the king's remains go?
Okay, so they were going after all the, like, valuables in there that they could sell, but no one knows.
King bones is real valuable to sell.
Okay. Can you snort those?
No, right up the
Probably.
pooper.
Oh, okay. Especially the Crohn's disease one. You really want the Crohn's disease one.
Just take the femur and
There's
shove it
so
right
many
up there.
shit jokes in this episode.
This is the poop episode for sure. You started it. You brought up the Crohn's disease.
Poopy-sode.
So, the tradition in the town, though, stated that the graves of Alfred and his family were not disturbed, but unearthed and pilfered later, during the construction of the town hall in 1788. The vicar reputably bought the bones, but they recently did radiocarbon dating to the contents of that burial, and they're like, yeah, no, this is the 14th century. We need older shit.
Okay. So these bones were not it because they were not old enough.
Yeah. So then they turned to bones in a storage box in Winchester City Museum that had been excavated from Hyde Abbey in the 1990s. The site that they got them from were where the tombs once were, and it's now marked by stone slabs. Archaeologists have announced that the radiocarbon dating from a fragment of a human pelvis excavated at Hyde Abbey is very, very likely to be that of Alfred the Great, or his son Edward the Elder, or the brother of King Edward, Ethelwerd, who were all buried at the Abbey. So good to know that the normal kings got on the throne. Normal named kings got on the throne. The bone fragment belongs to a male between 26 and 45 who died between 895 and 1117, and the individual had originally been placed to rest at the Abbey's high altar, which is really, really significant because you're like, you don't bury anyone there.
Yeah, and it sounds like the age and stuff doesn't quite fit what would be Alfred.
It's in the range, so we know it's someone in his family. We just don't know exactly who. But if it's possible to extract DNA from the pelvic bone, it's hard to find another DNA source, although German scientists have analyzed the skeleton of Alfred's granddaughter, Agnes, at Magdeburg, Germany, to get DNA, but that proved unsuccessful. And they're trying to do further excavations to find more remains to determine if that's them.
Okay.
So we still don't know where the bones are.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're still spinning around trying to figure out where these bones are.
Yeah, and it's really just at this point, they've been buried for so long and everything has its time, so the DNA isn't really fresh. And so it's just a question of finding someone they can confirm from his bloodline, like they try to do with Agnes, but they just can't get that match or get that a strong enough DNA profile.
Yeah, well, I mean, and they're dealing with super old bones, so I'm sure there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, and this is how they determined, like, the two kings, I think it was like a year apart, they found two British kings in car parks underneath them.
Yes, that does keep happening.
Put it under the freaking Pergo or whatever.
Which, if you think about how weird that is, you're like, I park there every day. I parked on a really old king.
Yeah, you're like somebody who made, like, real strides in history, and I just, like, put my fucking Kia on top of it.
Do they even have Kias in Britain? I don't even know.
Yes, they have the Ford Focus.
Yeah.
They have Kias.
I mean, Richard III, that's a whole debate on
if he's got a
whether or
Kia?
not- No, and whether or not he was making strides or if he killed his nephews. But
He did
still.
both. He did both with the Kia. He killed his kids with the Kia.
Oh my god, they had Kias back
Yeah.
then? Dang, I didn't know. That's how the War of the Roses was won, with Kias.
It's just a horse with a Kia brand sticker on the side of
Well,
it.
this episode taught me that we're all just going to end up a big old pile of them bones.
Of just bones
Pretty much.
just in the ground, and then someone's gonna park their spaceship on top of it and be like, well, that's kind of neat, and then they're gonna fucking throw us in a fire.
Pretty much.
Listening to Alice.
So do you want to tell them where to find you guys?
Oh yeah, in case you if you liked our interjections and obnoxiousness, you can find our podcast on your favorite podcast app or aggregate at Marble Orchard Podcast. We cover the murders and mysteries of the American Southwest. We do everything from fucking disappeared people to fucking aliens to fucking dead folks. So if that sounds like something you'd like, please check us out.
And nothing that's this old, because
No, because
we
the
weren't
American
there.
Southwest was
Yeah.
like Native Americans only.
It wasn't there. So this was interesting to find out, because
I know about
shit
this stuff,
it.
but that's because I listen to something called the British History Podcast. Very good podcast.
Love
also
them.
that covers stuff like this.
That's not on my radar because I don't know history for anything.
You're wearing an Ireland shirt right now. Your shirt literally says Ireland, and you don't know what we're talking about.
Yep. Then he went to Ireland to get his Crohn's fixed, and it didn't work.
Big fan.
So next week, guys, we'll have a new guest. I don't know who it is yet. I'll probably be recording it tomorrow because I overcommit to recordings.
But it's not us. Bye.
Mystery guest.
Mystery. Bye-bye.
That's how it works.
Yeah,
you just have a giant Excel sheet that says, like, let's do it.
Bye.
Hey, it's Natasha Turney from the Brodettenation podcast, where I interview everyday women who own their stories. I've talked to military veterans, entrepreneurs, stay-at-home moms, fitness gurus, single ladies, and many more. My goal is to talk to as many different women as I can on issues that are important to their story and hopefully yours too. Listen on iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, and Stitcher. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Brodettenation. For more information, visit my website, www.brodettenation.com.
Welcome to the promo for the Marble Orchard Podcast, the weekly podcast that explores emerging mysteries of the American Southwest. Hosted by me, Prickly Pete, and my co-host,
Faye Daniel. And we're not just another true crime podcast. We also discuss history, unexplained events, and local monsters.
You can find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or your favorite podcast listening app.
Cult of Domesticity. We're available on all podcatchers. Remember to rate, review, subscribe to help spread the word, or just force other people to listen to it. Our Facebook and Twitter are at Domestic Podcasts, and our Instagram is at the Cult of Domesticity. We also have podcast merch at Threadless. As well, if you want to support us financially or show some appreciation, we have a PayPal tip jar and a Patreon, which has some pretty great perks. Any topic suggestions, feel free to email us at domesticpodcast@gmail.com. Remember to stay domestic and cult-free.